my daughter, she had an experience like that. She's a chartered accountant, so she was working for the biggest Australian insurance company, and even though she was brought up as a devotee, she was working in the real world out there, and it was a little difficult for her, but she was getting used to it, and it was relatively good company, and she was feeling, yes, I'm a part of Australian unity. And she was feeling as if it was part of her, and she was a part of it. And then one day, they sold the branch of the company that she was working for. And then, boom, the relationship was gone. She felt cheated, because there she was developing an affinity and a feeling of being part of it, and suddenly, boom, it was cut. Now we don't need you anymore, you're sold. So you feel cheated. You've given a real part of yourself more deeply than just a job, perhaps. And then, boom, it's cut. Sorry, we're restructuring right now. And you have to restructure your life because you don't have a job now. So where do we give our heart? Which means our lifeblood, the human form of life. It's valuable, it's valuable. And we sell it for some sense comfort, which truly, ultimately, will not bring us the satisfaction that we're looking for. And of course, we'll give it to our family, too. We give our life to a family. They've done so much for us, of course. But then, family member dies. What can we do? We don't have knowledge. Mother, the person we love most, who fed us, who carried us, she's going to leave this world as we're going to leave this world. What do we have? What do we do? How do we reciprocate? Is it on just giving sense enjoyment? So what Prabhupada said is that the purpose of all occupational duties, that means in relationship. We have a relationship with our body, we have a relationship with our society, we have a relationship with our families, we have a relationship with our friends. Well, what's the purpose of all these relationships? To act in those relationships, which are, they're temporary, but they're real, is our occupational duty. We have a relationship with our body, with our families, with our country. And these, the sum total of these are our occupational duties. So the occupational duties a man performs according to his own position. So according to who we are, what our nature is, we'll perform our duties somewhat differently from another person. But if we perform our duties, they're only so much useless labor. Just like if we make a business deal and we're 90% done with it, or 95%, and we're going to make so much money, but then at the last moment it's completely canceled. What have we gained? Then all the work we've put in, we say, okay, that's part of life. But actually, all the work we put in has been useless labor because there is no fruit, there is no result. And the purpose of that work was to get a result. So similarly, if we're working to only get a material result, and we don't get the true result, which is natural for the soul, it is only useless labor. Shrama eva kevalam. Completely useless labor. Because then we die. Yes, we die. And what do we take with us from what we accumulate in this world? What do we actually take with us? Just our frustrations and even if we had wonderful things, we leave them behind. So what is the use of that? Useless. But instead, this verse points to what is truly to be gained, and that is Vishvakshena Katasiyat. That means rati, a taste for hearing, for kata, for hearing the topics about the Supreme Lord. So if we gain a taste for hearing about Krishna, that means what's going to happen to us is we're going to gain a taste for our relationship with Him. And our relationship with Him is eternal. And that taste and that gain, even with the passage of the soul from the body, He takes that home. And if we can help another gain that taste, the people that we love most in this world, the people we actually have a relationship with, then we've given them something that's wonderful, something that's eternal. If you, sometimes I think that if you took your life, say, how long do you think you're going to live? That's a peculiar question, but how long do you think you're going to live? Just
60, 70.
Okay, 60, 70, 80, okay. So if you could if you took a video of that, and and if you did it in real time, it would be 80 years, for example. But then if you sped it up, that same video of your 80 years, you sped it up to, instead of 80 years, you sped it up so fast that you could show the whole video of your 80 years life from babyhood to old age in 3 minutes. Just how amazing, like time-lapse photography or something, just how amazing that video would be. And then, what to speak of if we could see that then the soul went into another body, and then you'd take another body, and then another body, and saw all the bodies, and each one was 1 minute or 7 seconds, depending on the length of the life, or 3 minutes, and just a succession of all these videos of different progressions, successive births. And then in the birth you're in now, this human birth, you win a great award, the topmost achiever, or even a Nobel Prize for calculating this or that. And how, in your 3-minute video of your 80-minute life, how long would that be?
Second or two maximum.
Probably less, even. This would be nanosecond. And the greatest tragedy of your life, the worst thing that happened to you in your life, how long would that be? So, in spiritual life, we don't keep the perspective, or we rather put it in the positive, we keep our life in the perspective of eternity. And that's the difference between the vision of a sadhu, a holy person, and an ordinary person. For what's the greatest gain for an ordinary person is just for a person who has the vision of eternity. And which is more realistic? Which is more realistic? If you take the point of view that everything is just temporary, and when the body dies, everything is finished, you have no hope. What to speak of being realistic? That means everything, every relationship is just ashes, no taste, it's all. And that's what old people generally feel. The very thing that they get pleasure from, their body, becomes the cause of pain. And then you start thinking, oh, I remember when I was young, I could run, I could get a 6. I once met a person who was a world champion squash. You know, you play squash. I used to play when I was in the university. And he was a world champion, and I met him when he was in his 60s. This was about 10 or 15 years ago. And he could barely walk. Just imagine the frustration he must be feeling. His whole life was that sport, and he excelled in it. And now, when he walked from here to there, it was like... That means, where will he be living now? In the future, in the present, or the past? So his whole life is living, that means he's not even in touch with reality. He's just living in the dream world of the past, or when we're young and we have so many desires, we live in the dream world of the future. Oh, it's going to be like this, it's going to be like this, it's going to be like this, and it never is going to be the way we planned. So, Bhagavatam says, gain something with your life. A taste for hearing, a taste for your relationship with the absolute truth. That is the purpose of life. And how do... So when we establish ourselves, there are three things according to the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There's Sambandha, Avideya, Prayojana. Sambandha means what? Relationship. So what is my relationship with everything that I'm surrounded with? What is my relationship with the absolute truth? What is my relationship with other people? What is my relationship with the country? What is my relationship with this world? What is my relationship with the body? To be fixed in Sambandha Gyan. To learn Sambandha Gyan in an accurate way is very important. And then, when we understand our relationship with the world, our body, ourself, and the absolute truth, then Abhideya means we put it into practice. Slowly, maybe. We gradually learn the art of living accurately, realistically, in relationship to reality, to existence. Now, everyone wants to live in illusion. What's the purpose of 90% of the use of the internet? It's to just waste time and be an illusion in a virtual world instead of the real world. Why do people love going to the movies so much? Because they want to escape from the reality. They want to live in an illusory world for a while, because it's a lot more pleasurable than the real world for them. And why do people take intoxication? For the same reason, because reality, I have to remove myself from it. So they're not in Sambandha. They're not in true relationship with what truly is in existence. And then Abhideya means putting into practice the process of awakening our relationship with reality. And then Prayojana means living fully in relationship. That's the goal of reality. So what I see is that the prime things that we have to do as students is not be bewildered. The first thing is not be bewildered and thinking that the purpose of life, my occupational duty, is just to accumulate and to rise in a bubble that's going to be shattered. And this afternoon, late this afternoon, we're going to hear from BHURIJANA Prabhu, who's in New Zealand, in Christchurch. I shouldn't really take your talk away from you. But what is it like? Just imagine what it's like to be, because we have a sense that this world is real, and we depend on it. Simple things. We depend that the floor is really going to be there when we step on it, that the buildings are there, substantial, and they protect us from the cold and the heat, etc. But then, when you're in a place, a situation, where your very concept of reality, that the earth is substantial, and it's going to support you continuously, because right now we're all being supported by the earth, even though we're not conscious of it, because the carpet, underneath the carpet is the concrete floor, and underneath the concrete floor is this. It's the earth that's supporting us. Where does your concept of reality, which is really illusory, quote, reality, where does it go when the earth starts shaking like this and the building starts shaking? So it's more, something like an earthquake is more than just a building shaking. Why it's so disturbing is your whole concept of reality starts shaking. And that which you thought you could completely rely on suddenly is completely unreliable. And when you have these earthquakes, I'm sure we'll hear about it, that there's not just one earthquake, there's something called aftershocks. And there can be, how many a day? 100?
Initially, yeah, a couple of hundred a day.
And so it happens once, and then later in the day, the building starts shaking again. And you can't forget that I have taken shelter of illusion, as if it was real. Real means substance. It's there, and it can never change. That's the difference between the Vedic conception in the Bhagavad Gita of reality and the illusory conception of what's real and what's unreal, is that reality is always the same. And if we can catch reality, that is the way to be secure in this world. Not by grabbing at so many temporary things that will be there one moment, and then they'll be quaking and shivering underneath your feet. And even the body, that we rely on it. And that's what happens when you get old, and that's why old age is so disturbing, is that all the things that you rely on and think are you, one by one you lose them. Your strength, your ability to run, your ability to walk, your ability to remember, your ability to see. This is who I think I am. When we're young, we think this is me. And then one by one, Sava Upari Vanir Muktam, they're removed. Your teeth fall. I mean, it's very disturbing. I will tell you that from experience. Your hair falls out. See? Everything that you think is you, one by one, they're stolen away by the illusory energy. And it's very disturbing. Unless we practice in life to hold on to that which is real. Real meaning always there. And that's the purpose of life. To catch that. And the interesting thing about the Absolute Truth, is that it's always present in every place. And that's even Krishna inconceivably. So there is no, that's why a devotee, Swaga Pavaga Narakeshu Apitulyarta Darshana, that he doesn't make a difference where he is, he's always secure and fixed. Because where he is his internal consciousness in relationship with Krishna. And therefore he's in relationship with everything and everyone in an accurate way. So, life's purpose, again, is to develop that taste for Krishna. That means developing our relationship with Krishna, the Absolute Truth. Okay, I'll stop here. Now, so I see that, especially the devotees who are here, you all are here, that a lot of your kind of questions that you naturally have are, how do you apply this to practical reality in my life? Here I am, a student. Here I am, I'm going to enter the world. I'm more like Arjuna than Rupa Goswami. But Arjuna had to fight. He had to do his duty. Now how can I do that in such a way that my relationship with Krishna develops? How can I live practically in this world in such a way that my relationship with Krishna is blossoming rather than withering? That's the message of the Bhagavad Gita, how to do that. That's what the Bhagavatam will teach us also. But if we don't hear about Krishna, if we don't associate with devotees, if we don't have concentrated chanting, if we don't worship the deities, things like this, which are so powerful, we don't hear Srimad Bhagavatam, and if we don't turn our life into a holy experience, then we will be swept under the waves of material existence, and our life will be lost, and we'll end up very frustrated, because that's where everyone ends up before they die, very frustrated. So, okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Paul.
From the scriptures and from the devotees, we know that we have a relationship with the Lord.
Yes.
But unless we feel that relationship, we are unable to act upon it. So how to feel that actually we have a relationship with Lord?
Thank you. Very heartfelt question. But it's not 100% true that we have to feel before we act on it. But we would like to be able to have that experience, make it easier for us to act on it. Because sometimes we know something is correct, but we have a feeling to do the exact opposite thing. Like you walk in, I don't want to give you any too immoral examples, but you walk into a bank and you're feeling very poor, and you think, only if I had one crore, if they would give me 1 crore, and I should just take it or something like that. But you don't act on it because you know it's not correct. You act on what's correct, even though your feeling may be somewhat different. So sometimes that what keeps us steady in our spiritual pursuit is spiritual knowledge, the intelligence, the strength of doing the right thing because it's the right thing. And by doing that, the internal feeling, it should come. Now, what evokes our feeling of relationship with Krishna, which is what your question was about. So, when someone would ask me that question, which you did, I would ask you, what activity in spiritual life, in Krishna consciousness, more than any other activity, makes you feel yourself in relationship with Krishna, and that you want to enlarge that relationship?
Kirtan.
Kirtan. So when there's a good kirtan, have you been to Vrindavan?
Yes.
Do you? Huh? Oh yes. How did you, when you were in Varsana, what did you think when the kirtans were there and staying at Terkadamba and just chanting all day long? Did you feel a desire to want to get very close to Krishna?
Of course.
Yes, of course. So where the taste comes is very much an indication of what we should do in Krishna consciousness if we're getting within the basic practices of Krishna consciousness. I usually consider that's like where Krishna is opening the door for us. And where Krishna opens the door, you walk through. So associate with devotees, kirtan, quality japa, very important. To visit Sri Vrindavan Dham and the Krishna Balaram Mandir and the association of devotees. That's how I would answer your question. So what do you remember from my answer?
Activities which give us a taste that means there we can feel relationship with Krishna.
Yeah.
And we have to engage ourselves in those activities more and more, like qualities of kirtan and others.
What was the first part of what I said?
That it is not 100% true that whenever we get feel the relationship, then we act upon it. Rather, when we act upon it, then we get the feel.
Right. What was the first thing I said? That sometimes, because of our knowledge of what is correct, we should act correct, even though the feeling may be not there. Therefore, we study Shastra. Because intelligence, again, is the great gift of human life. You can even train a dog to do things, like sit down. You can even train. When I was growing up when I was a child, we used to watch a television program, and they have horses, and you'd say to the horse, the trainer would say, "How much is 1 and 1?" And the horse would take his hoof and go, "How much is 2 and 2?" And the horse would take his hoof and go. So horses have intelligence, they can be trained. So we have intelligence, we can be trained in much more sophisticated and better ways, certainly. So intelligence is our great gift of human life, and we should use it to point ourselves in the right direction. And feeling will naturally come. Thank you. Very good, honest question too. Thank you. Yes?
What do I mean when
Point
I
to
said...
me.
What do I mean when I said...
Wait. You said me. Where did you point?
Sir, like... When
No, wait. I said, and then you said me. Where did you point? Because you went like this.
Rahul.
Huh? Where did you point? Where is it?
He was not even aware.
Huh?
He was not even aware. What he is saying.
Yeah, we're not aware even. Where are you? Point to yourself. Now he's caught. Because we don't know where we are, who we are.
I didn't have that notion that time.
Huh?
I didn't have that notion that time when I asked the question.
I know. But I had that notion. So I asked you. Well, you asked me a question. Why can't I ask you a question? So, okay. Point to yourself. Point to where you feel yourself, where you think of yourself as. Okay, yeah, okay. Because if you weren't going to point anywhere, I was going to ask you if you existed or not. Do you exist?
I think so.
Huh?
I think so.
Well, if you think, you must. So you exist. So where do you exist? Do you exist in my body? Are you sure? Are you sure you don't exist in my body? You don't? You're not sure?
At a particular space-time point.
Yes, well, do you exist in my body at this space-time point?
But I'm existing here.
Yes,
this
but do you
space-time
exist in
point.
my body at its spatial point? No.
No. I'm existing.
Well, where do you exist? So you can understand where you don't exist. Where do you exist? So this is what the Bhagavad Gita teaches us. So, because the consciousness is all over the body, right? Your consciousness pervades your body. Clearly, yes. Can you put your consciousness on your nose right now?
It's my nose.
Yeah. Can you put your consciousness there and feel your nose just by your consciousness?
Okay.
No?
I
Yes.
can feel my nose.
Can you feel your left knee by your consciousness? Can you feel your consciousness in the left knee? Right toe?
Okay.
Okay. So your consciousness all over the body. But where are you? So this is what the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, you had a question, sorry.
So like when anyone asserts that Krishna is absolute truth, what does this assertion mean?
That the absolute truth is defined in the Bhagavatam, Vedanti tat tattvagyas tattvam yajnanam adhyam brahmeti paramameti bhagavaneti sabhita. So the absolute truth means, different from the word Ishvara, which means the controller. Absolute truth means there is nothing external to it, nothing outside of it, nothing in existence or non-existence that exists outside of the absolute truth. All-inclusive reality. That is what we mean by the absolute truth. Now, there are three different realizations one can have about that absolute truth, depending upon the methodology of approach. So if you approach through the intellectual methodology, you will be able to perceive the absolute truth as everywhere and everything. If you approach through yoga, you will be able to perceive that same absolute truth as Paramatma, Supreme Lord existing everywhere. And if you approach through bhakti, you will perceive that same absolute truth as Bhagavan, the Supreme Person, And if you approach by a special kind of bhakti, Braja Bhakti, you perceive that absolute truth as Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as Gopala, as the cowherd boy, as Radha Sound. So it depends on your consciousness, how you perceive the absolute truth. And in material consciousness, we perceive reality as separated from the absolute truth, which by definition is not possible. Nothing can be external of the absolute truth. And then, because of ahankar, false ego, instead of perceiving the absolute truth, we perceive prakriti, or the material world, as meant for our pleasure, and we try to exploit it. But that's inaccurate, because we're seeing it only as if it had a relationship with us, and we're not seeing it in its true nature in relationship with the absolute truth, because everything by definition has a relationship with the absolute truth. That's what absolute truth means, param satyam. So the Bhagavatam is meant param satyam dhimahi. It's meant to meditate. It's a meditation on that absolute truth, and it's the highest feature of the absolute truth, and the feature is Sri Krishna ultimately. But it's a meditation simply on the absolute truth, that which nothing is external to. Is that okay? Did that lead to any more question from you? Or did I answer your question?
I will think about it.
Yeah.
I will think about it.
Well, that's a good answer. That's what life is meant for, human life, for thinking about it. Deciding how you want to use your life, and what you really believe. Because if you really believe that this is you, the body is you, if you believe this is you, then you should put all your energy into your body. And if you believe that it's temporarily you, and that you're an eternal soul, then you should put your energy in a different way. So think about it, and that's wonderful. But don't only think about it, also please chant Hare Krishna. And that will, because have you noticed that we perceive reality according to our consciousness. We don't perceive it according to our eyes exactly. Yeah, like what is your major in school?
Physics.
University? What your major?
Physics.
Physics. So, particular physics or what? What do you like?
I'm doing my research in gravitation.
Gravitation? Wow. That's amazing. Did you ever study, could you explain what that is, what kind of research you're doing in a very simple way for a person who hasn't studied physics since high school?
It has just started, but like it is related to, like it's an exploration that how does gravitation arises. So they say that initially there was four-dimensional Minkowski space-time, and somehow by the presence of mass, the space-time becomes curved, and that is the cause of gravitation. So
string theory. Space-time becomes curved.
Space-time becomes curved. Like that is in the realm of general theory of relativity.
Could you explain what curved space-time? Because curving is something that's visual. Could you explain what it looks like?
Like if you put in case of two-dimensional space, like in case of two-dimensional space, you can suppose that there is some
so there's multi-dimensional
space, rubber membrane.
There's multi-dimensional space. Anyway, I just want to make a simple point that according to your consciousness and how you develop your consciousness, you'll see in one way or another. So you can see things that I have no access to because you've developed such a fine-tuned intelligence in this sphere. You can see things that a person like myself has no access to. I can't see, I can't understand. So we see according to in which way our consciousness develops. And this is true in all species of life, like a vulture flying in the sky. He can see dead bodies from so far away. He has been given that gift, so you have a gift of being able to see in a very subtle way through your intelligence. Now, even though it's difficult to explain to someone who doesn't know the terminology, who isn't on the same level of consciousness as you on this, it's very difficult to explain. So that it's the same thing in spiritual life. We can actually develop and cultivate a spiritual consciousness, a spiritual vision. that puts us in touch with a different realm of reality. And that is the eternal realm. That's the absolute truth. And how we approach it, like a person who studies quantum mechanics, and that's his point of vision. He'll look at and see quantum mechanics working. And a person who's just an ordinary person sees a completely different set of objects. And a person who's spiritually developed, he sees in a different way, completely. So what we would like to, we've been taught to tell people, is that please develop your spiritual consciousness. And not that you shouldn't develop that consciousness, but develop spiritual consciousness too. So you'll see things naturally, in a different perspective. And if one develops a scientific consciousness only, he'll only doubt the spiritual consciousness. That it's real, it's just some faith, it's just what they believe. You follow? Yeah. So please chant Hare Krishna and develop spiritual consciousness. How long have you been chanting?
5 or 6 years.
Years. Do you find that it's incompatible with your study of physics?
What was the question?
Is it incompatible? Is it compatible or incompatible?
I haven't thought about it.
Thank you. Good question. Thank you for listening patiently. But isn't it difficult to explain to a person who doesn't have the background of physics? It's very difficult concepts. Yes.
Sir, you told that do your duty and don't give up the battlefield and fight. Can you explain the statement?
Well, that's from the Bhagavad Gita. Mam anusmara yudhya cha. Krishna told Arjuna that you should fight, but not only fight. You should fight and at the same time remembering me. Keep what you're doing, the sense of what you're doing in its accurate sense, in relationship with me. Because again, Krishna is the absolute truth. So everything has a relationship with Krishna. So see your fighting, or in our case, see our dharma, our work, see it in relationship with Krishna and somehow. And this is going to be the challenge of most of your lives. And also in my life, but in a somewhat different way. But how to use, and this BHURIJANA Prabhu has to face, there's this tension because there's a tension between, one could say, like the outside world, or your duties to the world, and it wants to eat up your 24 hours a day and more. And then on the other side, there's spiritual life, where the example is the Goswamis, where they would just chant and they wouldn't even have time for sleeping. They would just be so ecstatic in their chanting and hearing about Krishna. And 24 hours a day weren't enough. So there's naturally some tension that's going to exist because both want to take up all your life. Now how to live a balanced existence so that you don't lose the purpose of your life and don't get swallowed up with the material energy, and you act practically according to your capacity and your position. That is the art of living. The actual art of living. And you have to live in the tension between these two. Unless you want to go 100% that way and become a 100% foolish materialist, betting on a horse that will definitely lose, meaning that I'm going to live forever and I'm going to get great happiness just from sense pleasure. Or you're an exalted, most exalted Goswami who doesn't care at all for the body, is just ecstatic on the spiritual level. So we live in between the two of these. And how to do that, and we might not get it always exactly, the balance exactly right, because it's like riding a bicycle. If someone asked you, what is the point of balance when riding a bicycle? It's balance in motion. Balance is always in motion. And you have to adjust according to the realities of the situation. So spiritual life is just like that. It's balance in motion. So therefore that you live between the tensions, because we're in the material world. But there are certain essential things that you can count on. Foundational things of absolute reality. That chanting, hearing, association with devotees. That these things are so powerful. If we don't have these as the foundation of our life, or foundational to our life, we will get over, the waves of material existence will wash us away. Was that what I said clear? Yeah. And there's such a tendency, we say, what should I do? I have this problem, on this side there's this, and this side on that. And that's the right question. But I would always say, to phrase it better, what should I do right now? Because in 6 months the situation may change, and we just have to keep always in mind, what should we do? What needs more attention now? And to do that intelligently is wisdom. And we have others who are more experienced to advise us. And also, like when you ride a bicycle, at first you don't ride when we were at the guest house, someone rode up, a student rode up, and he wasn't holding on to the handlebars. You know, he could maneuver the balance of the bicycle. When I was young, I could do that too, but not anymore. But he could maneuver the bicycle just by subtle shifts of his bodily weight, and he didn't know. Raise your hand if you can do that. Okay. But in the beginning, if you try to do that, you will end up in the hospital. It's easy when you are experienced and know and are very practiced. But in the beginning, you need someone saying, "Now just do this and do that." How do you ride a bicycle? You know, how do you tell me, write a book on how to ride a bicycle so I know just what to do and which point is balance? It doesn't work like that. So one needs personal instruction to help us to get the right balance in our life. Any other questions?
The start of the lecture, you said
But
this.
more loudly, please.
In this, when you just started the lecture,